1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
With an S.
That's right, with an S.
Because it's every Monday. It's plural.
It's not possessive, but it's Mental Health Mondays, plural.
Because it's Mondays.
Yes.
I don't know why.
That's my lovely wife and co-host, Marla. I'm David, or Dave, as I'm affectionately known as. To those who love me.
Big Daddy.
For a very select few. Specifically one. Put your hand down, Dr. Sweet. I just want you guys to know that you can actually, if you were to go on to the homepage for Love and Beyond Reason or NAMI San Fernando Valley, you see the Mental Health Mondays tab. It's a pull down. Please pull that down. Visit us. We love to have you visit our websites, but you can also donate to keep this show, Mental Health Mondays, coming to you for free. We love to bring you this information. Actually, we're called to bring you this information. It's something that is a part of our hearts, but we need your support. Today, as usual, our guest at age 17 was diagnosed with a major depressive disorder and a generalized anxiety disorder. Coming from a Caribbean family, much like myself, mental health wasn't a topic of discussion. Attending Harvard University, while things were less than ideal at home, she found the church. At the same time, she was suffering a breakdown and found herself needing medication. After moving to Los Angeles and finding NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, she has become a mental health advocate. And when we come back, we'll have a great conversation with our new friend, Angelique Henderson.
We'll be right back.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something.
And as Dave promised, we are back with our beautiful guest, Angelique. Angelique.
First of all, welcome
to the
Angelique.
show.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And listen, what I don't want you to do is look so frightened. We're such lovely people.
Well, we had a pandemic and whatnot.
Well, that's true.
We have our
That's
distance.
true.
But I want you to just understand that this room is full of love and acceptance and support. You have a beautiful smile. You're a beautiful human, and you have a beautiful story to share. And we really are glad you came to join us.
Thank you.
Now, Angelique, I had said in the intro, as we had talked earlier, we're both from, I don't know if you knew that, but my mom's side of the family is from Jamaica. So I understand some of the reluctance to discuss mental health. But describe to us, what part of the Caribbean is your family from?
My dad is from Guyana and my mom is from Suriname, so both from South America.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, one of our good friends, his mom was from Guyana. Now, that being the case, describe to us sort of the environment that you grew up in. I know that, and we'll get into it later, but you went to Harvard University. Congratulations.
No,
Harvard University.
Oh,
Congratulations,
right.
by the way.
Thank
But
you.
describe some of the conditions growing up at home that sort of led into, I guess, when did you first start to understand that you were dealing with a mental health issue? Was 17 the sort of the breakthrough age?
Absolutely. 17 was the breakthrough age. So I was born and raised in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. So, Bed-Stuy, do or die.
There you go. There you go. we got a lot in common.
Room.
So please make sure you bring the mic up close to your mouth, yeah, so we can hear you.
Okay, is this good?
That's perfect.
So Dave was actually born in Brooklyn.
She knows.
Oh, okay, so
I did a little bit of research.
okay,
So hailing from Bed-Stuy, that's where you grew up.
Absolutely. So there was an interesting dynamic of those external pressures of Bed-Stuy and
Yeah.
having to survive and
Yeah.
navigating that community.
Life is real.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Being inside of a household where you had to maintain a respectable public image, and what happens in the house stays in the house. And it was really hard. I grew up with a family member who dealt with mental illness. So he was in and out of mental health facilities. My parents marriage eventually.
Did that family member live with you? Was that your sibling?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the family member lived with me. So they dealt with bipolar disorder and schizoaffective disorder.
Oh yeah, just like our son.
So saw that up close growing up, and didn't have anyone to speak to about it. So
Yeah.
I processed a lot of it on my own and didn't feel like I could tell anyone outside of the family. My way of dealing with it was honestly to just stay out of the house a lot. So I threw myself into my schoolwork. I was always out in extracurriculars, playing the cello. I was
Social
on the track
stuff,
team.
yeah.
Exactly. Finding ways to stay out of the house until I turned 17 and dealt with a really hard romantic relationship breakup, and that was just it for me. So all of those things coupled together sort of led to my breaking point.
And were you already attending? We were about to attend Harvard when you first got the diagnosis.
About to, yeah. So
But
this was the summer before my senior year of high school.
Oh wow! Yeah, summer of your junior year. Wow.
So what I like to always bring to the forefront is what did that look like for you? Because depression and anxiety, so many people suffer, but it looks different in each. Some form of shape, form, or fashion. It looks different for each person. What was your low, or what does that look like in Angelique's life?
Yeah, so I grew up as an introvert. I think a lot in part due to the circumstances in my household. I didn't go out as much. I wasn't as social. So by the time the breakdown came at 17, it was a lot of isolating. I wasn't hanging out with family and friends as much as I used to, which wasn't that much to begin with. So it was a low bar there. My thing is I eat less, so I tend to eat a lot less. I oversleep, and everything is pretty much sadness and crying and sleeping a lot and trying
to full on depression at that point.
Yeah.
Now the good thing about it is that at the early onset of this breakdown, but you were still able to pull yourself together and get into Harvard University. So first of all, congratulations to you for being accepted and attending Harvard University. But then I also noticed that while you were in Harvard, you were talking about what were the pressures like? We spoke about the family pressures at home, but I know, first of all, going to a major university, much less going to an Ivy League university, especially for an African American, the pressures had to be pretty solid. So, describe how that felt to you at the time and how you tried to deal with that.
Whew, the pressures were definitely
I know that's a lot. I just said a lot.
They were intense. So I got my diagnosis right before I started senior year of high school, and around the same time I became a Christian. So that began my faith journey as well.
Now, were your parents Christians as well?
They were not. So we were
so that was something that a walk that you started on your own.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I had a best friend who was very, very Christian, into the church, out of trouble, unlike me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need some of what you have, because clearly what I'm doing is not working.
Right.
So I heard about Jesus for the first time, and it truly just transformed my life. So by the time I went to Harvard, having that faith foundation to navigate those different pressures was huge. There were academic pressures. I was the first one in my family to go away to college. I had no idea what I was doing. Could not talk to my family about it because no one knew.
No one can understand those pressures.
You were first.
No one could relate. Yeah.
Exactly. So lots of academic pressures to be in all of the extracurricular activities, being the president of those extracurricular activities, getting the best summer internships. It was just it was a pressure cooker. So it was only a matter of time before things sort of got worse there as well.
I just want to stop right quick and just remind everybody, I want you to really hear what Angelique is saying, because I always try to remind our public that the things we do or the things that happen to manage mental health challenges generally result in, i.e., addictions and things of the sort, but the fracture is stress. I need to repeat. She's saying it again, that is the catalyst for all issues, and it's just a matter of not having the valve to be able to process stressful events the right way. So even in Angelique's case, just again highlighting that her go-to for release ended up being getting into the church and finding a walk with faith. And we have so much more to talk to you about when we come back. And I'm not going to talk too much because I'm afraid of you, because you're much smarter than I am, because I didn't go to Harvard. But we're gonna put that to the test. So we'll be back in a minute with more Angelique Henderson. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot. You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
All right. All this month, we've been presenting the key findings of the mental health state of America, according to the annual report released by mentalhealthamerica.gov. Today, we present the final installment, and here's what the data shows.
People screening at risk for mental health conditions are struggling most with loneliness or isolation. From April to September 2020, among people who screened with moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety or depression, 70% reported that one of the top 3 things contributing to their mental health concerns was loneliness or isolation.
Also, people who identify as Asian or Pacific Islander, or the APIs, are searching for mental health resources more in 2020 than ever before. The proportion of screeners identifying as API or Asian or Pacific Islander increased 7% from 9% of screeners in 2019 to 16% in 2020.
While rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideations are increasing for people of all races and ethnicities, there's no notable difference.
There are notable differences
in those changes over time. Black or African American screeners have had the highest average percent change over time for anxiety and depression, while Native American and American Indian screeners have had the highest average percent change over time for suicidal ideation.
If you're interested, you can download the entire report at Mental Health America. That's MHAnational.org. This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays in conjunction with Loving Beyond Reason and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together,
It's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, we're back with our guest, Angelique Henderson, and she has been being very lovingly transparent with her story as she grew up in her home life. And we turned the corner as you were attending Harvard University. And we know our daughter graduated from Syracuse University, so we know the pressures that young people deal with, much less dealing with those pressures having to deal with a brain difference or a mental health diagnosis. You were saying that at Harvard, not only you, but there were suicides. The suicide rate was pretty up there. Was it one every week?
One every semester.
Every semester,
So,
okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
when I started Harvard, between my freshman and sophomore year, there was at least one suicide per semester.
Wow. And that's one suicide that actually someone tried to commit suicide, much less those were thinking that, dealing with those pressures.
Yeah,
that
those
Are
were
these
just
people who-
completed.
They,
so
they-
those were
right.
completed.
These are people who actually
Followed through. Yeah.
were complete. Wow.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Man, and so given that environment, and I understand the pressures you were saying, not only to have the extracurricular activities, keep your grades up, but also then becoming leadership in some of these other clubs and other things that you were doing. What finally was the breaking point for you with dealing with that amount of pressure?
So my junior fall, I studied abroad in Madrid, Spain for a semester. Best semester of college. I was taking classes 3 days a week. On the weekends, I was traveling to Paris, London, and Rome.
Right.
It was unreal.
Yeah.
So
We
I
can
came
tell the
back-
smile came back immediately. Before she started the story, she was like, best semester ever.
Right. Came back in the spring and just crashed. I thought I was going to come back to campus and take 5 classes and, act in a play and produce another play. And have a part-time job. I think I had 2 part-time jobs at
Wow.
that time, and that was normal for me before I went abroad.
Right.
But when I
Right.
came back, I couldn't readjust to that, and
That's another thing people
Yeah.
don't realize when you go abroad. I mean, they take siestas in the middle of the day from like 2 o'clock
2
till
to like 5 p.m.
5 o'clock. Everybody's just chilling, resting, just completely relaxed every day. That's not weekend relaxation. That's daily relaxation. And I appreciate some of the Europeans' approach to mental wellness. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and that was my life. I was taking those siestas.
Yeah.
So when I came back and I couldn't take siestas on campus, I was quite cranky. I was like, why do I not have time to
What do
siesta?
you mean there's something you want me to do between 2 and 5?
Exactly.
What is this?
Exactly. So that was really hard. So I crashed around that time. That was also around the time I realized that romantic relationship breakups are a huge trigger for
So it
me.
was another
Oh.
romantic. Oh,
Another
I'm so sorry to hear
romantic
that.
relationship breakup. I know, so bad. So it was the ending of that relationship. It was trying to readjust to being back to campus. It was dealing with family problems at home still back in New York while I'm at Harvard, trying to lift the family and, be this
Right.
first gen student, and ultimately crashed again. And that was the first and only time I ended up trying medication and realized that medication truly is an individual choice. It didn't end up working out for me, and I decided to, fight with my faith and in other ways. But yeah, I just needed to readjust and adjust my mental health framework. That's what I like to call it. It's my IMF, my individualized
I
mental
like
health
it.
framework.
I like
And
that.
yeah, just revamped it.
Nice.
Well, so I guess that means that going back to when you first had the break at home, they didn't put you on medication then.
No.
Wow. And
So Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in, and I love what you just said, and I want to ask you to repeat it about medication being an independent choice.
Absolutely.
And so what didn't work, like, if you don't mind me asking?
Absolutely. Yeah. So medication very much is an individualized choice. I think it's a decision everyone has to make for themselves. For me, when I tried it, I tried antidepressants, and they helped in terms of elevating my mood in the morning. But then I had side effects. So my hands were shaking, my tear ducts dried up, and I was too elevated to the point where I couldn't fall asleep at night. So then they
Wow.
tried to give me sleeping pills and
So they-
anti-anxiety pills. So then it was like, I'm not taking 3 pills a day to find an equilibrium. So I stopped cold turkey, and my therapist was not pleased with that. But
were there
we
any
figured it
side
out.
effects from the stopping cold turkey?
No.
Okay, so
So
that-
basically,
that worked well for you,
basically,
which is awesome.
they were trying to, which again, I want to just say to everybody, and I'm so glad Angelique is talking so openly about this. It's really important as well that there's no one size fits all, and it sounds like
Absolutely.
to me, which is no fault of a recommendation of any particular doctor or therapist, but they were trying to control your entire mood package with medication. We'll bring you up with this, and we'll bring you down with this, and there's no room for the individual in there.
And again, we have to
So-
reiterate that sometimes that is necessary for some people,
Right,
but
which is what we're
Absolutely.
saying.
thank God that wasn't necessary in your situation. So you
No,
were able
you
through
need the medication,
behavioral.
take the medication, please.
So
Please
you
take
were
it.
so you were able with behavioral modification to sort of get your situation back under control. Now, how did you continue with your therapist after that, or were they so?
I switched therapists and counselors a few times throughout college, so they all became quite acquainted with me. I think I
Yeah.
might have switched once that semester. Yeah.
But
Okay.
so I'm gonna get into something key when we come back from the break, and I'm gonna just hope that Angelique opens up, talking to us about what kept you driving for a solution and how important it was individually for you. So I would love to hear that answer. When
Our
we return.
guest is Angelique Henderson. We shall be back. The discussion is amazing, and don't move because you don't want to miss it. All right, the fun music tells what, Marla? What does that mean?
Look, my shoulders are better.
Oh.
It's bowl time.
Well, that first dance was kind of old school. It was kind of like Arsenio Hall. I'm surprised you weren't whooping. But anyway, Marla, what was the poll question last week?
Last week, the poll question that we asked: what percentage of youth with depression do not receive any mental health treatment? 15%, 40%, or 60% were your choices.
And so usually, Angelique, we open it up to our guests to try to make a guess, and
You're welcome
you might
to
be
give
correct.
a shot at it.
Again, the question is, what percentage of youth with depression do not receive any mental health treatment? 15%, 40%, or 60%?
60%.
60%. Ding, ding, ding is the correct answer.
I think she knew we had a hook, and if she didn't answer it right, we were gonna just,
She didn't even hesitate. She was dead on it. And unfortunately, that number is still too high for my taste, and so we need to work to bring that down and make sure that everyone has access to treatment, especially during times like the pandemic.
Correct.
The poll question next week is: what percentage of U.S. adults are currently experiencing a mental health illness? What percentage of U.S. adults are currently experiencing a mental health illness? Your options are A, 5.6%, B, 11.8%, or C, 18.5%.
18.5%.
Well, again, this answer...
You could be right, but you could be wrong.
You could be right, but we don't give out the current question until we let everyone have a chance to actually answer the question. When they see it on our social medias, on our website, please make sure you take the poll question. We love to hear from you. We need you to.
And we need you to vote.
Absolutely. We'll be right. Oh.
And I just want to always remind you to please head to Mental Health Monday to our GoFundMe page and donate so we can keep this great content coming.
Absolutely. All right, so Marla, you had a question for Angelique.
First of all, I just want to say that I'm pulling for Angelique because I know how smart she is. So I'm pretty sure that she probably answered the poll question right. So.
It's right.
I love it. She's like, I'm good.
I love the confidence.
So I asked her the question about in the difficulty of trying to find solutions when you're in the mode of suffering through, it's so easy to deny it or to quit, especially when the answer you were given initially wasn't right for you. What drove you personally to go inside and I need to feel better no matter what. So then you're open to different changes. What was that? What was the spark for you that just said, I can't quit on finding an answer here?
It was really two things, honestly. One, primarily my faith in God, knowing that I was created for a reason. I was here for a purpose. And if I just stayed in my room and in my bed 24/7, I would never know what that is.
Right.
I would not fulfill it. And secondly, it was my family. My family they didn't do well seeing me as down as I was. And they just was like, this is not you. You're brilliant. You're a wonderful actress. Like, why aren't you out and entertaining, etc.? So I fought through that for them.
Wow.
So that was your reason why.
Something outside of yourself to fight for. That's a big key. Growing up on the East Coast, Bed-Stuy, Bedford-Stuyvesant, for those who don't know, Brooklyn, New York, you went to Harvard, everything's East Coast. You found yourself coming out. What were the situations involving around the situation moving out to the West Coast?
Yeah. So I moved out here to LA in December 2018 after working in politics in New York for about 2.5 years. And I was taking acting classes nights and weekends there and decided I just wanted to pursue it full time. So made the move over here. I was in a good place with my mental health, thankfully. So I was like, what? I can live alone. I can do this. It's going to be fine. I've had over a decade of doing the work,
right? Of,
seeing the therapist, of figuring out what works, exercising, eating healthy, all of that. So that's what brought me to the West Coast.
Nice.
So I want to put a pin in that as well, because what Angelique is describing is she didn't go from A to Z automatically. She put in the work for a decade or more, taking responsibility for herself and her own mental wellness. She knew she had a diagnosis, but she didn't let that diagnosis define her. What she's saying that she did, and kudos to you again, as taking ownership of her own mental wellness, she stayed with her therapy. She adjusted her lifestyle, made sure that she exercised, ate healthy foods. We're biochemical machines, so we got to put in healthy things to expect a healthy outcome. That's another big thing. And then she said, after putting in the work, now she had confidence that she can live alone and she can actually go ahead and pursue her dreams. And a lot of people, that takes patience with yourself. And I want you to actually describe that a little bit.
It was a journey.
Yeah.
Because I was always the hardest on myself. I didn't give myself a lot of grace, which was part of the problem. A lot of my pressures were self-inflicted. I feel like I had to be perfect. I feel like I had to get straight A's. I feel like I had to do everything right. I needed a perfect plan before I moved across the country. And it was a lot of letting go of that and trusting that, you know, there's an element of faith there. Sometimes you just have to walk out on faith, say, you know, I'm equipped, I have the skills, and it's going to be okay, and I won't know until I take that first step.
I'm gonna ask you a question because you've said it already twice. Have you been able to balance the trigger of a significant other, a relationship?
Oh, I'm so single. I don't even put myself in the way of that trigger. I would like to be married one day, but until that comes about in a very serious way, no, I'm just, you know, doing my own thing.
Is it because it's just not preordained at this point, or because of the trauma that you've had in the past?
Largely from the trauma. Yeah,
Okay.
I think breakups were just so bad because I have such a big heart and I love so hard. So when I get fully invested in someone and in a situation that I think is going to pan out for the rest of our lives, and it doesn't, it really was
The shattered
life.
expectations.
Like each person took a piece of you because you gave all of it.
So much.
So then let's turn the corner again. And how did you find NAMI?
So one of my church sisters, actually, so I joined a great church out here in LA when I moved out here, and she is the director for the program that I'm in. So the In Our Own Voice program, I'm a presenter for them. And when I got here, you know, things were fine at first, but then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
It destroyed my individualized mental health framework. I had to recreate everything. And she's like, you know, you should join NAMI and volunteer. This was not on my radar at all to be this outspoken of an advocate, but I'm really thankful that she encouraged me to.
We are too.
So the program is in Our Own Voice. Describe the program a little bit.
Yeah, so In Our Own Voice, it positions different leaders in their communities to go to different businesses, mental health facilities, faith communities to give presentations about mental health to essentially help break the stigma and, you know, humanize it in a lot of ways and share our stories.
So now when you go around to these different businesses and you speak to these groups, do you find that they are as aware as you think they should be about these mental health issues, or are you just turning on information that they're not familiar with when you speak to them?
Oh, they're aware, and that's been really refreshing. A lot of people are aware. They just don't have those outlets to be that open about it and to talk about it. And again, those tools to deal with those things.
Absolutely. Well, you look like you had a...
No, I'm just, listen, I am, my heart is so full and grateful that so many people are finally, it's not about your organization, my organization. It's an us thing. I always say mental health is not your problem. It's our problem. And if we cared more about each other and if we spoke up more together, we could be so much stronger and we could heal so much quicker. So I'm just happy to sit here and speak with Angelique and know that there's one more voice that is connecting with many other voices that are actually saying to people, you're not alone. I get it. And so thank you for that.
Again, our guest is Angelique Henderson. I know that she's made her family proud, and what's really refreshing is that it sounds like she's also been able to make herself proud. We'll be right back.
Bad.
Looking worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered. Marla and Dave.
Well, I ended kind of where I'm going to pick up, and just by literally saying from my heart, thank you, because your voice matters. Your sharing your story is impactful, and it is it's
inspiring.
Yeah, but it's I just want to continue to encourage you to open other people up, because we're like little teeny tiny particles that are meant to come together to make one picture, but we're also broken and we're also isolated in this one little pixel. So once our pixelations come together, we're going to make a beautiful picture, and it's time. So I appreciate you being one of those pixels that can be seen. But before we go, what's the one precise, quick message that you want to share when you look into your camera and you tell everybody what you want them to know about mental health?
We need a mental health revolution in the academic world, especially starting at the elementary level. I mean, if we know that half of all mental health conditions start by age 14, we need to be attacking it at the root.
Wow,
well, there
that
you
is
go.
an
That's
amazing
powerful.
message, and it's an edict that should drive us forward and give us motivation and another strategy to attack this whole mental health, mental wellness situation, so that we can bring some balance and some parity to, I guess, as we treat other illnesses, mental health can be on the same par.
And we have a grandson who's 11, and with what Angelique just said, if we can bring that to light, we literally can have a generation that no longer suffers in silence.
We're Marla and Dave. Our guest has been Angelique Henderson. We thank you so much for sharing. See you guys next week. You don't want to miss it. Great guests coming up all month.
We'll be back. See you then.